Wow. Man, thank you so much for all your effort. You know, without you knocking on doors, calling people, texting people, telling your friends, we could not bring this home. We're going to bring it home tomorrow. I've been asked all day, will you accept the results of the election? I said, you're asking the wrong question. I said, will Gavin Newsom accept the results of the election when he loses? I see Pastor Joe Pettick back there. Pastor, thank you for having me in your beautiful church in Huntington Beach. You know I'll be back as governor. It's been a long, sweet journey. I got into the race late, not because I was trying to be strategic. I just wasn't sure I wanted to do it. But I looked at the candidates who were running. I looked at the way this man shut down this state while ignoring science, while having his own kids enjoying in-person private education. And this is a big deal. He shut down in-person education for government-educated kids, 80% of whom are black and brown. I always bring that up because people on the left, like Gavin Newsom, claim that they care about black and brown people, but denying them the right to have in-person education for a whole year. And they're already behind. We spend almost 15 grand per student per year on government education, and our test scores are near the bottom of all 50 states. Well, I think only about 15 or 16 states spend more than we do. Half of all third graders before the pandemic could not read at state levels of proficiency, and those levels aren't high. The math scores are even worse. What's the route to leave poverty? According to the Brookings Institution, which is a left-wing think tank, I quote left-wing people whenever I can. The first step is to at least finish high school. One presumably where you can read, write, and compute at grade level. I see you over there, Gina. Don't try and hide. Trying to be obscure. One where you can read, write, and compute at grade level. Now, black and brown parents living in the inner city want something. They want vouchers. They want the money to follow the child rather than the other way around. Polls show they want this. What's the number one obstacle towards choice in education? The teachers union, not teachers, teachers union. They are the most powerful union in the state. They're the biggest funder of my opponent, Gavin Newsom. And if you look at where teachers put their own school-age kids, it's astonishing. 10% nationwide of us have our kids in private school. 6% of black families have their kids in private school. 44% of Philadelphia public school teachers have their own kids in private school. 39% of Chicago public school teachers have their own kids in private school. At the LA district where I am, if you are a public school teacher with a school-age kid, you're twice as likely or more to have your own kid in a private school compared to a family that does not have a public school teacher in it. I've said before, that's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, putting up a big sign saying, come on in, eat the food. I sure as hell won't. And yet, every election cycle, black and brown voters pull that lever for the Democratic Party that is stopping them from escaping poverty. Now, what they're afraid of and why all this heavy lumber has come in, I'm talking about Obama cutting a commercial for him and Bernie Sanders cutting a commercial for him and Senator Warren cutting a commercial for him, is they're afraid I'm going to break this Jedi mind trick they've had over black and brown voters that cause them to continue voting for Democrats even though they're stopping choice in education, which is what you guys want. By the way, speaking of the people that have come in and cut commercials for Gavin Newsom, Barack Obama cut a commercial for him. Let me spend a little time on Mr. Obama. Barack Obama, when he was 10 years old or so, was living in Indonesia with his stepfather, who was an oil company executive, and his mom. The oil company had a private school that was designed for oil company executives. But she didn't think that school was good enough. So she sent him to Hawaii to live with his maternal grandparents so he could attend the finest prep school in Hawaii. After he graduated from Punahou, he then comes to LA and he goes for 2 years to a private school, very exclusive school called Occidental. Did 2 years there. Then he goes to New York and finishes up at an Ivy League school called Columbia. Then, of course, he goes to Harvard Law. The man never set foot in a public school. Michelle Robinson, his future wife, she did attend a public high school in Chicago, but it wasn't the nearby one. She got on a bus and went far away because the one nearby was inferior. The girls, Sasha Malia. Obama was an instructor at University of Chicago, and that school runs a private school for the teachers and professors who teach there. So Sasha Malia went to a private elementary school, And then when the Obamas moved to Washington, D.C., Michelle Obama made a big deal out of sampling the public schools to determine where Sasha and Malia were going to go. And of course, she put them in Sidwell Friends, the same school that Chelsea Clinton went to, that right now is $40 grand a year. So the girls, K through 12, never set foot in a public school. Obama never set foot in a public school. And for all intents and purposes, Michelle Robinson, later on Michelle Obama, went to a charter school. Yet when Obama became president, he shut down the D.C. Scholarship Opportunity Program that provide vouchers for people, K through 12, most of whom were black parents. And when the program was reignited, it was oversubscribed. More people wanted in it than they had seats for it. My point is, these people are hypocrites. They want choice for them, but not for you. They know a quality education is the key to upward mobility, but they're denying the very black and brown parents that they claim they care about the same opportunity. It's outrageous. And I'm making this argument, and they're scared to death that they're going to lose that stranglehold they have over black and brown voters. We have rise in crime, for crying out loud. 20,000 convicted felons released during coronavirus early, many of them violent offenders, and based on history, a large number of them, if not the majority of them, are likely to reoffend. What could possibly go wrong? And just a few days ago, Barbara Boxer was mugged in Oakland. The former senator, her cell phone was taken. And a few days before that, the Oakland police chief complained about money being diverted from his police department because of this ridiculous defund the police movement. And according to the Associated Press, some 76,000 more prisoners are going to be eligible for early release over the next coming months and coming years. This is absolutely outrageous. The number one job of government is to protect people and property. It's not being done. Average price of a home in California just hit $800,000. That is anywhere from 150% to 250% above the national average, depending upon the study that you read. And for the first time in our state's history, people are leaving California. It's never happened before. And when middle class and working class people leave California, they cite as their number one reason for leaving, they cannot afford the price of a home. According to Leo Hanian, who is an economist who teaches at UCLA, the average price of a home in California is literally 50% more than it would be but for laws like the California Environmental Quality Act that allows virtually somebody to file a lawsuit to stop any development project for any reason for an indefinite period of time, which jacks up the price of a home. The average price of a home literally costs 50% more than it would be but for laws like CEQA. By the way, businesses are leaving at a record rate. More businesses have left California in 2021 than have left all of last year. And the rate at which they're leaving is twice the rate at which they've left the previous 2 or 3 years. And they cite the rise of the cost of living, taxes, and regulations. There's a magazine called CEO Magazine. It's been around 17 years. And for 17 years, they've asked CEOs which is the worst state in which to do business, based upon taxes, based upon the power of the public sector unions, based upon whether or not the state has a pro-business or an anti-business attitude, based upon regulations. And for 17 consecutive years, California has been determined to be the worst state in which to do business. There's a war on the timber industry, which is why the trees have grown so thick. Outgoing Governor Jerry Brown left a plan to clear 500,000 acres of fallen trees and dry vegetation. Governor Gavin Newsom bragged that he cleared 90,000 acres, which, if true, would have been a drop in the bucket, but it wasn't true. According to the LA Times, he only cleared about 13% of what he said he cleared. He lied by a factor of 7. So the war in the timber industry means the trees grow real thick, and they're not being cleared. The timber industry is probably about a quarter of what it used to be, because the environmentalists have convinced people that the spotted owl is more important than people and jobs. We're having a water shortage here in California. There's a drought. Droughts are God-made, but shortages are man-made. We haven't added to our water infrastructure in about 40 or 50 years when the state was half its size. It's not like voters don't know what to do. We pass bond measure after bond measure after bond measure to build more reservoirs, to raise dams, to build more underground water storage. So when it rains, we should be storing water. Instead, the water drains right out into the Pacific Ocean. There's a desert country in the Middle East called Israel. They are now water self-sufficient because of desalination plants. They have a body of water right next to it called the Mediterranean. We have a body of water right next to us called the Pacific Ocean, and we can't figure it out. We're having rolling brownouts. We have all these brilliant people in Silicon Valley, and we're having rolling brownouts because more and more of our utility companies are pressured to put more and more of their resources into weather-dependent, unreliable sources of power like wind and solar. It takes almost an act of Congress to drill an oil well and to deal with the underground oil and the natural gas we have. So on every level, whether it's crime, whether it's the rise of homelessness. By the way, Gavin Newsom ran for mayor in 2004 in San Francisco and promised to clean up the homeless problem in 10 years. That would have been 2014. Have you been to San Francisco lately? And when he was lieutenant governor, he complained he had nothing to do. I suggested perhaps he might want to work on the campaign promise he made back in 2004. So if you can tell me what front, where this man has made life better for Californians in the last 2 years, I'd love to hear it. Not on crime, not on the decline of the quality of public education, not on the rise of the cost of living, not on businesses leaving at a faster rate than they've left the previous 2 years, not on more businesses having left this year than have left all of last year, not on fire management, not on water management, not on power management. He has been an abject failure. And I haven't even talked about the $30 billion that was stolen from the Employment Development Division. That department was designed to make sure that Californians got their unemployment checks that they deserve because Gavin Newsom shut down the state, shut down businesses, shut down jobs. $30 billion were stolen by crooks applying for unemployment benefits from San Quentin and by crooks in Nigeria applying for California unemployment benefits and getting them. Meanwhile, 1 million Californians were waiting for their checks and they were not getting them. So I can't think of any level, any front, any policy this man has engaged in that has made life better for us in California. He shut down churches while keeping open strip clubs and marijuana dispensaries and liquor stores, casinos. Thank you. You want to write my speech next time? So, this is all about turnout. Because if we turn out to vote, we win. I've been asked over and over and over again about voter integrity. And I said, look, 2 million people signed that petition. A quarter of them were the very people that voted for him just 2 years earlier. The majority of Hispanics voted for him, 63% 2 years earlier. Now the majority of Hispanics want him gone. And the primary reason is school choice. That is why former State Senator Gloria Romero crossed party lines bravely to support me. She's still a Democrat. But when you do that, that party calls you everything but a child of God. And she is bearing the brunt of the betrayal that her party feels she engaged in by simply supporting me because she supports school choice. Now, one final thing. I was the victim of an egg attack when I was in Venice Beach at a homeless encampment. Yeah, I was reminded someone wearing a gorilla mask threw an egg at me. Sir, how do you know it was a mask? Now, I'm going to be accused of being sexist. I'm just making a little joke here, a little humor. But maybe she was one of the 20,000 people that was released early by Gavin Newsom. I don't know. And maybe she should have been behind bars, but she wasn't behind bars because we have cashless bail. I don't know. All I know, seriously, is that had that happened to somebody with a D at the end of his name who'd been black, oh my goodness, it would have been the lead story. There would have been a manhunt, international manhunt. They'd be talking about this in Bangladesh. And speaking of double standards, as you know, I was called the black face of white supremacy by the LA Times. Yeah, I thought I wasn't black, so I guess I'm black. But speaking of double standards, there was an article, front page article about me in the New York Times. And I've never asked anybody to vote for me because I'm black. I've never asked anybody to vote against me because I'm black. And frankly, this business about me being the first black governor, I've said when Obama became first black president, as far as I'm concerned, everything else after that is anticlimactic. However, on the first page of the New York Times, big article about me, negative, about all the horrible things I'm going to do up to and including, I guess, reenacting slavery. I don't know.